Welcome to Bonehead.
Hey, you. Welcome to
This
Bonehead.
this is a very special episode of Bonehead where you should
I'm
go.
on a highway to hell.
Oh my
No.
God.
They
Is
need
that
to
your
go
Angus
get their.
Young or your Brian?
Yes.
They need to go get their children. The good thing, gentlemen, it said hell is for children.
So
This is a very special episode of
last
Bonehead.
week we talked about heaven and its representation in art, whether it be movies, television. James went on 400 hours of
I was
books.
wondering when that was going to come. It always comes in threes.
Pearls before swine. Pearls
I
before
guess
swine.
I don't know. I don't know anybody named Earl.
I don't think you hear well.
I
Or maybe I don't
actually heard you say
enunciate.
Earls before swine. And I thought it was something like pearls.
Can I talk like this the whole episode?
I would
Yeah,
love
sure
for
you
you to
can.
talk like that the whole episode. I don't know if you
as
can keep
long
it
as
up.
you're trying to get gadget. So, gentlemen, we did heaven. Now let's do hell.
Well,
We'll
and so
probably never get to choose betwixt the two.
Hold on. Get the lube.
Do hell.
He said, let's do hell.
I think he's stretching hell there.
I bet that'll be a burning sensation.
Now,
Oh,
I have a
What STD does hell give me? All of them.
I have a confession after we get done with STDs. Do you guys like a lot of movies that take place in hell? Now that
no,
you look at it.
I like
There are
mine.
a lot more, but I don't know that I like any more than I did the heaven episode.
I like mine adjacent to it. I think
Yeah.
the voyage there is fascinating.
Yeah, because there's Event Horizon and some of them that are on a lot of these lists. Drag Me to Hell is on a lot of these lists,
Yeah.
but there isn't any hell. You kind of get a glimpse of it in Event Horizon and a slight glimpse of the last, 20
5 seconds, 30 seconds.
as she's
Yeah.
being dragged into hell, which is
I can't believe that shows up on a lot of lists because
Google it.
it's not about hell. I mean, it's about the journey to get to him.
avoiding it.
I will say this.
Her trying to avoid it. By the way,
So-
spoiler
so-
alert, she does not avoid it.
So, what are we saying at the very beginning of this episode that, much like with heaven, it's about the journey, not the destination?
I mean,
But the-
kind of. I mean, honestly,
I guess.
and as we progress forward, I mean, honestly, some of the in terms of hell being portrayed, I prefer television's portrayal of hell. Hail.
Yeah.
I lost my breath and it turned into a really East Country accent there.
I don't know what country hailed.
Hail.
I hear their bells are phenomenal, though.
It's a lot of crystal meth and Trump flag.
Front crack.
And then, but also too, it's not necessarily hell in movies, but the devil, because it's all.
Well, I actually didn't. So I think that's a whole other episode because there's a ton of movies I like and shows that deal with the devil.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
But-
we need to do a devil episode because
I don't
think-
know.
I think there's something innately fascinating about the devil as a character.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want Lucifer to show up in my living room tonight.
He's
But-
literally portrayed as a villain and an anti-hero, depending on which version you're talking about.
Well,
But we'll talk about that. Well, let's do a whole other episode on the
Yeah,
devil.
yeah, I think we need to.
Hey, James, why don't you spend the next 6
We need
hours telling the
content.
history of hell.
Well, how about I start with let's talk. So
Chad, we need less content if we wouldn't get in those Hollywood no's, which are sure I'll do your show. How about next week? Silence.
yeah. Or let me get back to you.
Let me get back to you.
Yeah.
I don't even get that. It's sure. Well, how about this time?
A couple of things. For hell to be such a major player in the way that I was always yelled at church, it doesn't pop up too. I mean, it's present in the Bible.
Did you go
but
read
it-
the whole Bible again?
It does. Well, yeah, I did a quick. I skimmed.
You skimmed it? Well, that's what you did in 8th grade, and now look at you, you dirty, dirty sinner.
Well, I mean, I've been told I'm heading there multiple ways. I believe women should be allowed to wear pants if they so choose. They
Oh
should
my
have
Lord! I
to.
thought that was going someplace that
Um,
it shouldn't go.
What would they be wearing instead of pants, Chad, that you thought it was going?
No, he was going to say something. I thought he was going to say something about women in hell. I'm like, oh no, don't do that.
No.
Yeah.
That's not this show.
I'm equal opportunity. I believe everybody's going. Anyway.
He thinks women and men are both equally able to go to hell,
Yeah,
and he tells them such.
yeah. It's actually my voicemail. Thank you for calling me. This is James. You can go to hell.
You could go, or our new hell, hail,
Yeah,
Hail.
yeah.
hail.
That
So
needs
anyway-
you need to write that book, Chad, where there's different and what it can be. Oh my God, you've just created Hank Williams Jr. Hail, which
Hail.
is of course New York City.
Well, it's
You're
filled
going
with
to
it's filled with women who are liberated and demanding their abortions now.
Oh,
remember that entire
Joe went
thing
there.
Remember that entire thing where we
Was
wrote
it liberated that bothered you? I knew it would, you sexist bastard. You know,
Remember that entire series
many
of
as
sketches?
abortions as you can, Chad. I don't understand why you stopped them.
Remember
Anyway, you were
the
saying,
series of
James?
sketches we wrote about Republican hell that we never got to
Republican
make?
hell,
Republican
Republican
hell.
hell. Yeah.
And nobody ever wanted us to do a sketch show because we tried one of them on our show, and no fans, just it's your fault though.
All I
Anyway,
remember is it ended with reading Ayn Rand. That's all.
Well, I
As
don't think
most
it's Republican
things
hell
do.
anymore. Isn't that Republican heaven?
I mean,
The exceptionalism thing. I don't know. I actually think there's a lot of people on both sides and a lot of Hollywood people that fall on that Ayn Rand bus.
Oh well, obviously, yeah.
you know, somebody really recommended.
Kevin Smith is one.
A couple people have really recommended saying, "I think you'll really like it," and I never know whether I should be offended or whether they think whether they're complimenting me and saying, "Well, you're one of the exceptional ones." I don't know. But I'm always thinking,
Brad Bird, Kevin Smith, Tomorrowland is almost the whole damn thing. That's what it is. It didn't even occur to me that Kevin Smith was talking about exceptionalism and how it moves him, and then I started thinking about it, going, "Holy shit, that is what that movie's about." Keep going.
But anyway, so a little bit about hell, as mentioned in the Bible. We get Matthew 13:50, which talks about a furnace of fire, weeping and gnashing of teeth. We get Mark 9:48, where their worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. So evidently there's fire worms. Revelations 14:10, he will be tormented with fire and brimstone. And all of that is saying that it is a conscious and constant torment. In other words, you don't get to forget it. You don't get to pass it out. You have to be conscious, and it's constant. And it's also
40 years of darkness, earthquakes, volcanoes, the dead rising from the grave, dogs and cats
living together, mass hysteria.
All right, I get the point.
It's also eternal and irreversible.
Eternal. Are
Now,
we
there are-
supposed to put
here's-
that many E's before the eternal?
Here is the no. I'm trying. You want me to switch into Southern Preacher mode? I can do
Eternal
it.
hail.
May I have your attention?
He hoovered above me.
I could have went into it, but I just didn't have the.
That's
the need
another
for money.
bonehead. That's another
Yep.
Church
and
of
the
Plum
sketch that
Reckoning.
the audience.
Church of Plum Reckoning.
Yeah, Church of Plum Reckoning.
But it's so. And by the way, there are some people.
Now it's QAnon.
Yeah, shit. That's true. Fucking Homelander is one of their people. They're like, holy shit, that guy's got it right. It's like, oh my god, he's a villain. They start watching Church of Plum Reckoning and following her. What the hell would we do? Because we need the views.
I mean, I would try to slowly turn it toward good. I guess. I mean, as many of those as I. As many of
Good
those
isn't
sermons
funny. Good is dumb.
Evil will always triumph
Because good is
is
dumb.
But Revelations, Joe, gives us the most about how it's eternal. By the way, this is actually debated by some theologians on how serious or how, because there are some different sects of Christianity that actually believe that eventually, for instance, there are a small group that believe that once everybody in hell is forgiven for their transgressions, they can be redeemed, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, that's not the way a lot of people interpret it. And that's why this is Revelation. And a lot of people point to Revelations for that standing, saying, Revelations 14 to 11. The smoke. I got tongue tied. I didn't do it with my fiery preacher voice.
14 to 7.
The smoke of their torment goes up forever and ever, and they have no rest day and night. Revelations 20:14 tells
Because they're
us
smoking crack.
this is the second death, the lake of fire. I'm sorry, the lake of fire. The lake of fire.
Lake of fire.
And in Revelations 20:15,
Which is now Lake Erie.
if anyone's name was not found written in the book of life, that's right. If your name's not in the credit of the animated film, The Book of Life, just give up hope now. Start to sinning. He was thrown into the lake of fire. Now, that's the Christianity references. That's the most common references to anything like hell in the Bible. There's not a ton of them. But, and I don't mean to cross some wires here, but it turns out we may have got some of our views of Christian hell from ancient societies.
What?
Because I know.
I thought you were
shocker.
going to do like a Squidbillies. Was it ancient Babylon? It's not Babylonian. It's,
No, it's ancient Aramaic. I forget the yeah. Bunch of scribblings. Anyway,
these things are good. These things are gooder than hell.
I got snakes. Snakes is what I got.
Yep.
So the ancient Egyptians had Ammit, which was the devourer of the dead, also sometimes called Amut or Ahamat.
Or M. Emmett Walsh.
But by the way, that was a demoness and a goddess.
Not to speak his name.
She was considered both a demoness and a goddess, and it turned out that she was made up of 3 parts: a lion, a hippopotamus, and a crocodile, and those were all chosen because those were the most lethal creatures, the most man-eating, quote-unquote, creatures that the ancient Egyptians knew about.
Yeah,
So she was the devourer of souls or devourer of the dead, the eater of hearts.
Was her back end hippo? So when she pooped, she did that little tailspin.
I don't know, Jay. You'll have to look that up. Her titles included devourer of the dead, eater of hearts, and great of death.
You want to come into my territory? Well,
and we called her Tandy.
And so her job, it turns out,
no, just Tandy. This is for Jessica.
If you were not worthy of going to the afterlife, which, by the way, their good afterlife was still just a field of reeds. I don't know, but she just cast you into a pit of fire. Sounds a little bit familiar to what we did to
not
sinners.
A ring.
No, that's John, the great theologian John of Cash told us about that. Ancient Mesopotamia.
States what they've got.
Hebrew-loid. It's Hebrew-loid.
Mesopotamia.
This is ancient Sumerian Hebrew-loid is the lie.
Ancient Sumerian Hebrew-loid. I am so sorry to our Squidbilly. By the way, have they replaced him? And can I audition for that job?
I don't know.
Promise to not say anything batshit crazy
about Dolly Parton ever.
Now.
Well, now the rest of this episode is going to be drier than dirt. Anyway, ancient Mesopotamians, they believed that the afterlife was underground in a deep, dark cavern loaded beneath the earth, where it was a shadowy version of life. So it was like Earth, but everything was dark, everything was dreary. And it was
it after Earth? Because that's my form of hell. Have you seen that piece of shit with the Smith boys?
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Earth 2, which actually I enjoyed when it was on TV when I was a kid. It is this domain is known as Ker, and it's oversaw by the goddess Ereskikilgul. I'm mispronouncing that, I'm sure, but that's how it looks.
Okay.
All souls, though, went to the same afterlife. The difference was, much like the film Coco, is do your family remember you after you die? And if they did, they would actually pour water over your grave. And the reason for this was, in the afterlife, there was no water. The only people who got to drink were those that were remembered. So they some of their burial sites, you can still find remnants. There was like a clay pipe that you could pour water down into the
That seems like a flawed system. You could be a fairly decent person, and about 3 generations, people are not going to remember you. But I guarantee Hitler's family is never going to forget him. And he don't deserve no water.
Now, maybe he gets urine. Like, maybe they just go and all take
That's not mine. That's Hitler's urine.
Anyway, the Aztecs believed, and this is one of my favorites, believed that the dead traveled to Mictlan, a natural place found to the north. So they believed you just went north.
So they went to
Yeah.
Canada.
Yeah. So evidently in
Damn
Canada,
draft dodgers.
evidently in Canada, there was a legend of a place of white flowers. It is there's a constant state of darkness. However, it was home to the gods of death, particularly, and I'm going to get this wrong as well, Mictlan Kutli and his spouse Mictlan Kutalali. Both of those, by the way, mean lords of death. Just one's masculine, one feminine. However, my favorite part about this gets to this: to get there. Once you get there, everything's okay. It's dark, but it's okay. You get an afterlife, but you have to earn your afterlife of everything just being okay. And this is the part that I like, gentlemen. To get there, you have to pass by tests. And I was like, I wish this was a movie because I sat there and watched this because it sounds crazy. Some of the tests you have to do is to climb a mountain range where the mountains suddenly just crash into each other. Okay, challenging, but it would look cool on film. You have to cross a field where the wind carried flesh-scraping knives constantly blowing around you. Just knives. And my favorite, you've got to go across the river of blood filled with jaguars.
Well,
Just
they're
jaguars.
not European, otherwise it would be jaguars.
Jaguars, constantly. I just picture them doggy paddling. They're in the river of blood. What are they doing?
That kind of sounds like a quote from one of our friends. I would drag my balls through a mile of glass just to hear her fart over a walkie-talkie.
It wasn't balls. It was his member. It was his peni, right?
Oh, it was? Okay.
I think I dragged my Richard. Let's just say Richard, because I won't say
Richard Petty. Richard Petty.
I mean, I've already said smortion 3 times. Well, it
one
rhymes
more
with
time and you get a
smortion.
free one. One more stamp and you get a free.
Can you stamp my smortion card?
And there's my hour in purgatory. Anyway,
see? Good is dumb.
And I may be getting the pronunciations wrong on this. I don't want to offend anybody, but in Islam, and I'm sure I missed John Hanam, which is related to the Hebrew word Kinanmon. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that. Sorry there as well. It's the counterpart to heaven. It's divided into 7 layers, which sounds awfully familiar to a certain inferno. It's filled with blazing fire, boiling water,
inferno,
and other torments. And finally, the last religion I'll do, just to show that there's all different interpretations, but we do seem to have religions that value a bad place. Zoroastrianism has historically suggested several possible fates for the wicked, including annihilation, which it seems like it might be
that poor Ewok do to anybody.
Because your options are
know what the hell he was talking about.
Your options are.
But annihilation would be better than an eternity of burning. Non-existent sounds.
I think of Dogma, right? Dogma. I mean, at the end, the best. They're kind of thankful that their punishment is nothing. I mean, it is nothingness. It's not nothing. They are punished, but anyway, because your other options are, and you're right, Joe, purgation in molten metal for eternity.
Yeah.
Or other eternal punishments. And so,
other.
Hold on. Now, the last thing I want to say, because as we get ready to talk about
well, as a masochist, I can't wait.
Which is actually one of the points that a lot of people made. And we'll talk about.
And we'll get to that to
later
one
on.
of the movies I want to talk about in a minute.
Because I want to very quickly, because most films and a lot of movies, matter of fact, one of the first silent films made in Italy, La Inferno, was an adaptation of Dante's Inferno. So before we go on, I'll knock out the history and the literary, at least the ancient or the older literary, I should say, the classical literary. Real quick.
Just do that.
No, I did I did religious text, sir. That's not literature. Don't say it's literature.
Oh my God!
Don't say it to religion.
Got to get this misfortune card stamped.
Don't say it's literature. Those religious folks get real upset. Anyway,
literature.
Dante's Inferno. Quick overview.
Draw a crowd.
If you've never read Dante's Inferno, just an overview of the circles. Circle 1 is limbo. That's where there are virtuous pagans and the unbaptized who were otherwise good people. That's where you'll find places like people like Plato, Socrates, Hippocrates. You know, they were pagans. They didn't know God.
And babies. Still
And a
with
lot-
babies.
You
I was gonna
can't
say,
walk
I was-
around limbo without tripping
I was
over
stepping
4 or
on
5
a damn
babies.
baby.
See, I was going to go a little lighter and say, and a lot of steel drum music.
Limbo. I see what you did there. Moving on.
Ah.
Circle 2 is lust, and the punishment for lust, according to Dante's Inferno, is wind constantly blows you everywhere, so you can't be with anybody, right? Because
I've been trying to get blown for a while. Keep
I
going.
knew that joke was going to get made. By the way, if you are there, you'll eventually be. I almost said blown by you. Blowing past you will be people like Helen of Troy and Cleopatra.
So Helen of Troy and Cleopatra are going to blow me. Good. Episode 3.
Level 3, circle 3. I'm sorry, is gluttony.
I've got that one too.
The punishment for gluttony. I was about to say. Now, do I have to tour? Do they? I mean, do I get moved around anyway?
Yeah, I'm probably
Will
more
spend
gluttonous than
eternity slowly rotting while snow, ice, and rain, a perpetual wintry mix, if you will.
the worst. It's so slushy.
Yeah, as you rot for eternity. But you also have to deal with the fact that a giant worm monster, Cerberus, just watches you do it. He just sits and watches. Circle 4
Probably
is
eating Haagen-Dazs. Worm fuck.
a little umbrella, so he
I don't
doesn't
know
have to
where
deal
he's getting
with
his
wintry
arms
mix.
from. Arms? I don't know where he's getting his arms from.
I know. I now it's in my head though. He's got a little umbrella over him. I'm not out in that wintry mix.
It's so slushy.
I'm eating my ice cream since y'all rot.
That Haagen-Dazs is really good.
I'm not gonna give you any though. You too gluttonous.
You too gluttonous, you fat fuck. I can't believe you've been rotting for 500 years. I still see cellulite.
Oh my God. We need to write that. That would be out.
Still see it.
Circle 4. Bonehead presents Circle 4.
What? I already gave you Haagen-Dazs.
I'm sorry, Circle 3. Circle 4 is greed. That's what you
Yep.
have to spend eternity carrying boulders and other weights tied to your chest for eternally. But you also have to
Doesn't
spend it.
seem as bad as me there rotting with the snow and the
But-
worm who won't stop eating the ice cream.
You also have to constantly haggle with people for more wealth, which it just adds weight to you.
I just have too many jokes. Keep going.
So it's Marley basically from the Christmas Carol. Level 5 is anger, which somebody actually pointed. I'm sorry, circle 5. Sorry, it's technically anger, and somebody pointed out that if you're a pirate, the anger level is just great for you because you have to sail the river Styx and fight against other people. That's a pirate dream right there.
I mean, if you can't die and you're going to continuously fight and have a good time, do you get to pillage and do all the other things as well?
I
You have
evidently,
that
I mean, as long as
asshole
you're
worm
angry,
making comments.
Do you still get scurvy?
I don't know.
Yeah. We're gonna have to
Circle
get it- we're gonna have to
6.
go back and get a shitload of lemons.
That's what we're fighting for this week, boys.
Lemons. That's
Circle 6 is heresy against God. So if you said anything bad about God, you get to spend eternity in a sealed tomb that is also constantly on fire.
Which god?
Well, the Christian God, the Inferno was written about heaven and hell.
I
and
just wanted to
purgatory.
be specific. I
Bob.
didn't want to piss off Fishnu or whatever.
Circle 7 is violence. And I was like, anger is not violence. So violence is considered different for Dante. So if you could, and this circle has 3 rings to it. The outer ring, which is considered the least offensive of violence, is if you murdered someone.
Right.
If you
Not done
murdered
that.
someone, you just have to spend eternity slowly sinking into boiling blood. That's your punishment. The next ring of this circle is for people who committed suicide. And that's where you're planted as if you're a tree and you slowly become a tree-like thing that constantly has to bleed its own blood.
Mm.
And the inner ring is for blasphemers who are violent toward God and, in a sign of the time, sodomites. And since they committed the ultimate violence against God by disobeying him, they get to constantly walk across a burning desert. But don't worry, it also rains fire down upon them at the same time.
And I miss you.
Well, if you have a
Like
nice
the
asbestos
deserts
umbrella, you're
miss
fine.
the rain.
And asbestos shoes, because the ground's hot too. Circle 8 is for fraud. And this, by the way, was
How many
called
circles are there?
there's technically 9. Some people debate he meant to have a 10th. I'll talk about it. We're almost done. Circle 8 though has a name familiar to Spawn fans, Malbolgia.
Yeah.
Malbolgia actually means the evil pits when you translate it, and it doesn't have rings. What the way the pits are set up is there's just line after line after line of pits, and these are for people that committed fraud. So, depending on what fraud you committed, is what pit. And I'm not going to go through all the pits, but let's say Joe, your fraud was, flattery. So you committed
James,
fraud.
you're a handsome man.
See, so here's what you're going to expect for that awful, awful lie. You now have to wade in trash and human excrement for eternity. I hope it was worth it.
So I'm going to
you
New York.
silver-tongued devil. Anyway, if
big Texas 10-4.
If you were a pimp or a seducer and frauded women of their virginity, let's say, you got whipped. You get whipped by demons. Demons.
Oh, no, really? Do tell me more.
Oh my.
Speaking of silver-tongued devils, sir.
If you were a soothsayer who committed fraud by claiming you could predict God's future, which of course was unknown to man, your punishment was they turned your head backwards so you couldn't even see forward to walk anymore.
Unless you turned around.
You have to walk backwards.
Who's going to make me?
I'm not going to go through the rest of them, but
Chad never walked like anybody anyway.
Nope.
Circle 9 is the deepest, darkest pit. That's where you will actually find.
Is it the frozen one?
It's where you'll find Dis or Satan or Lucifer or whatever. It's treachery and it's cold. It is the opposite of what most people assume hell will be. It is frozen and it's divided into rings. And like I said, some people debate the 10th or say there's 10 circles. That's because actually the innermost ring of the 9th level is where the devil is, and he has 3 mounts. And each of those mounts are dedicated to tormenting somebody that is the ultimate treacherous person. One mount is constantly chewing on Judas.
Yep.
One mount is constantly chewing on Brutus.
And the other one's talking about how Sally Jesse Raphael had some good points.
And the last one is chewing on Gaius Cassius Longinus.
It took 100 and blah, blah, blah episodes to get a Sally Jesse Raphael reference in there.
And so that being said, so the devil is constantly chewing on those.
What's the last person he's ass chewing?
I'm sorry, it's Gaius Cassius Longinus, who was also involved in Julius Caesar's.
My middle name was Longinus. I'm joking.
No, it's
really not.
Short timer.
It's more like stubbiness.
Anyway, but by the way, I wonder if that needs to be updated now, because Dante said that those were the ultimate betrayers, and I think Judas probably still is not going to get a bye. But of course, Dante chose those because they ended unified Rome, which he saw as being Italian. People weren't unified anymore in Dante's time. There was no united thing. Yeah. And so he saw that as the ultimate betrayal of man's potential, that we couldn't unite as one country nation. He didn't pay attention to the fact that Caesar united a lot of people by conquering them, but still. So anyway, I wanted to do that because a lot of what we're going to talk about during the rest of this episode, which we have about 10 minutes left for, is going to touch on the biblical and Dante and stuff like that. So I just wanted to give the historical and the groundwork. I'm going to stop speaking now and let somebody else have a chance.
Well,
why don't you get out of there and give someone else a chance?
Well, back to our original point, I don't remember what it was, but I'm going to say that there's not a ton of movies that take place in hell that I like, but there is a sequel that I do like. I don't know that it's a very good movie. It's Hellbound Hellraiser 2. And it does take place in hell, and it's a lot of mazes, and they're trying to get it. In the middle of it is Leviathan.
Yeah, I was about to say, and that's one of the things that I had. So as I was doing my research, what I realized I needed to do, just to keep it straight in my head, is divide how movies and books and other things create hell.
Yeah.
And one of my categories was hell is a maze. And of course, that's where, for me, Hellraiser 2 fell, because you see that shot of it kind of at a, it's not from above, but it's at an angle, and it's a maze. There's no way. There doesn't seem to be a way, and everything's compartmentalized, but So yeah, no, I agree.
It's a cool. It's got a lot of cool imagery. It's not a bad sequel. I Hellraiser and Hellraiser 2 fall in. Well, no, I like it better than Phantasm, but they fall in the same category of people remember it fondly. It's it's got a lot of cool imagery.
But
But
there's
don't
not
think about
much.
it too much because that shit don't make any sense.
No.
Even in its own world, it doesn't make any sense. But Pinhead sure as shit is pretty cool, right? And it's cool to look at.
Yeah.
They weren't even called Pinhead in the first one. He's just called the lead Cenobite. That was just made up during marketing. What are you going to call it? He's always got pins sticking out. He said Pinhead.
Pinhead, yeah. Yeah, no,
My, my idea of nail face didn't go anywhere.
No. Sorry.
Get nailed this fall.
Oh, I was kind of trying to Bob Vila. I was trying to think of a Bob Vila reference and I couldn't do it. So Bob Vila going wrong. So but I do enjoy. I mean, I never set her out and just to watch Hellraiser or Hellraiser 2. I think Hellraiser 2 plays slightly more linear if you haven't seen them in a long time than Hellraiser.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the imagery in it. I can sit there and I like the Leviathan in the middle of it. It doesn't make any good sense, but I like a lot of the imagery and I like but it's not necessarily scary. And that's a lot of problems I watch with these movies. I see their versions of hell and I don't think that's got to be the worst thing ever. Do you guys feel that way when you watch them? I mean, maybe that's because we just got out of Trump's America.
No,
but
I mean the one thing the in terms of that one, I mean no, but the only one that really scared in terms of if that is what hell is, it would terrify me is we brought it up last episode, but it's What Dreams May Come.
Yeah, I thought you'd bring it back up again because because his wife commits suicide.
His wife commits suicide, so she goes to that level of hell where she just sits in a broken, crumbling house with no idea of who she is, where she came from. She just exists. And
she ain't turned into a tree that constantly has to bleed.
Yeah. And oh no, she just sits in it. But imagine that, living in a crumbling, derelict house. You don't know why you're there. You don't know who you are. You just know you're there. That terrifies me.
Well, no, I was about to say, and I think that's it. I think, when I think about things that truly terrify me, and I think I've said this before, I probably on the show, but I mean, it is forgetting. It's my memories,
yeah.
And so that's something that does, because, break my arm and I'll be like, oh, my handwriting was crap anyway. I can use this dictate option on my phone, but when you lose that ability to connect with others, really, and I think that's one of the more terrifying things. So yeah,
and I think that's honestly, I think that's one of Robin Williams' best performances, where he just says, "I love you so much, I'm not leaving you," even though he knows while he stays there, he's going to become what she is, and you slowly watch him dissolve into nothingness, and it's just.
Yeah, it
gives me chills even to this day watching that movie. So, and him having to walk through all the faces to get to her. I mean, it's just
seeing his dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I forgot about that. I actually forgot about that. Yeah, he steps on his dad's face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if his dad wasn't such a floor mat.
So we're not doing our favorite ones. We're just having a conversation.
Yeah,
This is a movie that you both enjoy more than me. I like them. I haven't actually went back to revisit, and I haven't seen the new one. But what about Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey?
Well, and like I said, I try to divide them up into themes, and I think Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey adds to a narrative that's seen in television shows as well, and in quite a few other films and things as well. And that's the idea that hell is having to relive your worst moments, right? I mean, stealing the Easter basket from the sibling, and then all of that, the different things there. And we see that same version of hell in Preacher with Hitler and being failed. We see it in Disenchantment, where Hansel and Gretel have to watch, each other get killed. If you haven't seen Disenchantment, we see it in Event Horizon. Event Horizon, I mean, that's only part of it, but he has that entire thing where he has to do Lawrence Fishburne has that great speech about, have you ever seen Fire in Zero Gravity, So when he starts to see his first glimpses of hell, he sees the guy that burned in the fire when he had to separate, and so having to relive your worst moment, and it's sort of a theme in As Above, So Below as well. This
Yeah,
idea
I saw
that
that one. That's the one in Paris, right?
yeah, where they go down the catacombs and they're looking for the Philosopher's Stone
Yeah.
and all that. But yeah, I think that's an interesting idea because I think I think so many of us do that anyway, but we can kind of distract ourselves from it. But if you couldn't distract, like I think about all the mistakes I've made in my life, and you critique that and you think about it, but you can get distracted by something else. But if you couldn't, if you had to constantly watch, as is shown in some of these movies, it pretty much is a film, or you, in the case of Preacher, where he actually has to relive it day after day after day after day.
You're right. I didn't actually think of Preacher, James. I'm glad you brought it up, especially with the gunslinger guy. I mean, it just the walk back with the family.
Yeah.
Over and over. And
That's a
over
pretty
again.
good depiction of hell. I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, just that you never get, it's always a new experience of horror, but you also know as soon as it's over, it's going to start again. Like there's something tragic about that. And so I think that's one that does work on me over time is, what if that is it? What if I have to relive, everything I've ever done wrong? Like saying, yeah, I'll do a podcast. So, I mean, there's just so much that we can look at there.
Hey,
Nothing.
almost 170 episodes, and we still think of 2 or 3 episodes every time we talk about it.
Oh, I know.
But no, I know you're making a joke. Yeah, I was kind of, that's one. And then I wanted to get back to the point of a lot of movies talk about hell and they talk about where they're going to, like Drag Me to Hell or Event Horizon, and they may show a glimmer, but there's very few films that just take place throughout hell. Even the ones that do, like Constantine. Constantine has a cool version of hell to me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's another one on my list. Yeah.
But it's only probably what 10, 15 minutes of the movie.
I actually read a review of and a commentary on it, and the problem, somebody actually wrote, the problem with Constantine is there's not enough hell. Mm-hmm. Those scenes when he's in hell, when he's reaching out to her in hell, when he's and you see this kind of irradiated earth, like it's one step away from our reality.
Right.
It's just, it's, we're here, and it's, you tilt this way and you're going to see it. And those the black winds that blow and the almost irradiated feel everything have, and those demons that are just, I mean, they're scratching and clawing after. There's that scene where they're literally trying to claw up to him. It's a really effective scene. And so somebody recently wrote, I wish there was more hell in Constantine. And I think Constantine also, and we'll talk about when we do an episode about the devil that we've talked about, but a lot of these are benefited by who their devil is.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's true about TV shows and movies and books. And how do you portray the ruler of hell?
Yeah.
And I was just going to say, you with Constantine's hell, you see that Constantine's hell, and it's dark. It's actually pretty cool visually. But then you have the Constantine television version of hell, which you see in Legends of Tomorrow. And it's literally, we landed in hell. It's an industrial site that's at nighttime. And then if it's not there, it's a shady bar with some extra green lighting. I mean,
that's a budget thing though, don't you?
It's totally a budget thing.
Yeah.
But you have two versions of Constantine's hell, and you got which one's better. But in terms of where a movie that takes place in hell that I think does a pretty good job of hell and is entertaining, South Park: Bigger, Longer, and Uncut.
That was the next one I was going to.
Yeah, I mean, that honestly is my favorite version of a movie hell, because it takes place quite a bit in there. So,
and it oddly gives us this ruler of hell who wants out of there.
Yeah.
If only I could be up there.
Yeah.
Up there.
So
Sorry.
Now that we've talked
up there is so much room.
Talked about. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, so we've touched on this already. So one of the divisions that I put under Constantine is this idea of a burning hell. there's fire, there's all that stuff, and a couple other things that fall into there. Is that's what we do see of hell in Drag Me to Hell.
Yes.
We see the fire. We see that's really all we see. I'm the only one that's going to bring this up, so I'm going to go ahead and do it under the burning clause. Dog Hell from All Dogs Go to Heaven.
I was about to talk about that.
Features fire and demonic creatures, kind of a dragon-like thing.
Yeah.
That is after him. Mortal Kombat, the video game series, not so much the movies. But it talks about the nether realm, which is defined in the game through dialogue. It's the fiery depths of which are inhospitable. Of which are inhospitable to all but the most vile, a realm of demons and shadowy warriors. And then I've got to mention the last fiery hell that comes up, and I mentioned it last time too, when we talked about heaven, as far as how Futurama shows it. Robot Hell. I rewatched the episode today so I could read the chart. Robot Hell. When Bender is sent to Robot Hell, and he's
another one of my favorite devils, by the way.
On the spinning wheel. Have you ever noticed what's actually written on the wheel? He lands on deep fry, and they deep fry. It is deep fry, bake, parboil, fricassee, which is misspelled, by the way, in the episode, saute, and the last one is actually pleasant massage. I never read the entire wheel that they spin him on.
And you know, about Robot Hell, I love the song where it says, "You'll pay for every crime, knee deep in electric slime. You'll suffer till the end of time, enduring tortures, most of which rhyme."
Actually, my favorite part about that song is I forget the lead-in lyric, but basically Bender sings, "There must be someone worse than I," and the robot devil just goes, "There really isn't. We looked." And I just love that response. We actually look. There's not. You are the worst robot ever.
And if we go
so that burning hell is it's a trope, and again, it goes back to those biblical references early on, and even the ancient Egyptian. But we do see that in film still. I mean, and video games and cartoons and everything.
Well, and that's what I want to talk about next is cartoons, because I think there's probably just as many cartoons that deal with hell, vicious hell, than there is movies or close. And it goes all the way back. There's the Disney one called Hell's Bells from 1929. It's pretty violent, and it's filled with demons and fire.
Playing the on the rib cage.
On the rib cage, that's right.
Of the condemned.
They would never do that in Pixar today.
No. Or will they? We'll ride at Pixar.
All Dogs Go to Heaven's another one. I mean, there's just been a ton of animated cartoons that have dealt with the devil and fire and flames. I mean, from Bugs Bunny to all the way back to Disney.
Yeah.
And that just killed it. So sorry that the conversation just kind of died out.
No. But again, I think then it's still the fiery hell, right? When they go down or whatever.
Yeah, the Spawn is still a fiery hell, right?
Yep.
Even in the comic book, in the movie, it's a really shitty CGI where they just kind of fall.
I believe it's considered some of the worst CGI in cinema history.
And they basically just kind of roll out of the fireplace. Do I remember that correctly?
Yes.
In the room.
Animaniacs has an entire episode where they fight the devil, and the devil eventually, just go. I don't want you here, and because they keep. I think at one point they accidentally turn out Hell's pilot light, and he can't figure out. Do you know how hard it is to reignite this place? So I mean, the you're right though. The presence in cartoons and
not so much anymore, but because we're raising a generation of pansies.
I don't know. Does VeggieTales deal with it? I've
never seen VeggieTales. Well,
what is the devil in VeggieTales? Well, somebody, if you're watching this and happen to be a VeggieTales scholar, will you go on Twitter at Bonehead Weekly?
Yeah, tell us what the devil looks like.
I know there is a tomato, but I think he's good.
And there's a
cucumber. Is it a kiwi? I bet the devil's a kiwi.
I was going to say
fruit. Something's up with that.
It's going to be a damned persimmon.
Oh. It would actually be a damned persimmon. I mean,
here comes that damned persimmon.
You can say it because it's accurate.
So hold on. Let me go back to my list as I was looking through. We've talked about Constantine. The Cell is another version, but I don't know that that's necessarily hell.
It's
So
his mind's hell,
it's
right?
his mind's hell, right?
It's the hell created by a criminal mind, a criminal mastermind, perhaps, but a mind.
Yeah, and I like
Kingpin.
the Cell, and I don't think a lot of people still talk about it. But I don't know and I don't know that it's hell for her. I don't know that it's his own hell as much as he is God in it.
No, but I'm just glad that you've given me a chance to say that everybody should check out Hell in the Cell.
So
wrestling.
Another one that was on several lists is Legend. So, but I don't think they're actually in hell.
Well, a lot of people have said,
think?
They wanted something family friendly, so they make him the Shadow Lord or whatever.
The darkness. He's the darkness.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, you could read that as, an allegory for hell, I think. Now, does it spell out that it has to be? No. Could you? Absolutely.
And I really never interpreted it that as hell. It was just a fantasy world where there's
a big ass demon.
There's a big ass demon. There is a torture area, but it's not. I never really envisioned that as hell because you don't have to die to go there. You're just
you
go through it. You go over a bridge, and you're here.
It's got unicorns.
I took the wrong turn off this turnpike.
Hey, red gentleman.
Pardon me, sir. I was looking for the enchanted fairy of leprechaun gumdrops.
And by the way, you talk about a movie.
He charges an extra 20.
Talk about a movie when you watch it as older and you realize there's not much of a plot there.
There's no plot. There's very little script. It's just.
Remember when we talked about Goonies, gentlemen?
Oh, it's just Ridley Scott saying, "Boy, that shit looks cool."
Yeah, that's all it is.
In all fairness, though,
how many Tom Cruise?
How many things are made that way that we do enjoy?
I
mean, once again, Joe, what's the great story about? There's no fog in space.
No, yeah, well, because he did it over the credits of Alien. It's like, but there's no atmosphere in space, Mr. Scott. There is now, man. I just think it's one of the most director lines of all time. And him and that Monte Cristo that he not that he's dead, but that he chewed all the time. So go ahead, Chad.
No, I was just gonna say again, this falls into it's a really cool depiction of hell, but it's literally 5 seconds. The Frighteners.
Yes.
I had a category for that because I think it functions.
Frighteners is more in heaven than it is in hell.
Yeah, but I think Frighteners, the brief glimpse you get of hell is organic. And I think that's an interesting choice because if you go back and watch it,
it's worms, all right?
It's worms that go in through their every orifice and pop out.
There's tentacles and and basically it looks like a meat tube where it's a portal to heaven. It's a white light. It's not.
It's a meat tube.
It is a meat tube. Watch the movie again, sir. It looks like a tube of meat with worms in it.
I don't disagree. I just like it when you say meat tube.
Well, you probably identify with it because I did say meat tube with worms in it. Sir, see a doctor.
Hashtag meat tube.
Anyway, I think we found the name of this episode. Anyway,
probably not.
It may get us hits, just not the ones we want.
Oh, damn QAnon and blah, 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 blah.
But it is. So I agree, Chad. It's only there 5 seconds, but it's a very striking image. And it's when I was writing this up, I was like, that is probably the most organic looking hell. I mean, it looks like it's creepy.
Yeah. I mean, and for the time that it's on the screen, it's really effective.
Oh yeah, I mean, it looks like a Satan's colon.
Yeah, and there are plenty of movies with hell where there is a longer sequence, and it does not have that impact that the Frighteners did. So it has to be mentioned when we talk about this. And then we got to go away from the serious, and we do got to talk briefly about one movie.
Oh, does it have that one guy that my friend Dave told me is always going to be better than me because he's got money?
Yep.
We
are, of course, talking about Adam Sandler's Little Nicky. Is it bad that up until a point that was my favorite Adam Sandler film?
No, I think it's one of the off-ball ones. I just don't particularly.
You think it would have got made with anybody but Adam Sandler? Like at that time, like that's an Adam Sandler vehicle.
Yeah.
Love it or hate it. but it's an Adam Sandler movie.
Right.
I mean, you got Kevin Nealon growing boobs on his head. I mean, and then Rodney Dangerfield having his way with him. That's
Tarantino has a jacked up cameo.
Yeah,
preacher.
we're all gonna die.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just not a huge Adam. For you people out there who don't know this, I think I've shared it before. Not a huge Adam Sandler fan.
As I've gotten older, I am in that boat as well. As a younger person, I was a huge Adam Sandler fan. Not so much now, unless his more serious stuff I enjoy. Punch Drunk Love and the insanity that is Uncut Gems.
I've got to be honest though, he's striking a chord now. What's the one Halloween movie he did?
Hubie Halloween.
Yeah, I appreciate it now because it's something I watch with my kids that works. Like it's not. I'm not saying it's great, but he's almost hit an Ernest type level when he does stuff like that to where I'm like, yeah, it's forgettable. There's a couple giggles in it. My kids though think it's really funny, and that's good enough. Like So I give him credit because he has adapted with the times enough, or he's adapted as I have aged to where now I can watch him with my kids. So I appreciate
it. Here's to go back to the horror films a little bit. Here's another one that deals with hell a lot, but it's not really hell, and they don't really go to hell to the end. And it's, do you guys ever watch any Lucio Fulci films? Fulci?
Yeah, I
mean, The Living Dead, House by the Cemetery. Mm-hmm. The Beyond deals with it too, but it's only once again, damn it, in the last 5 or 10 minutes. They're in the hotel. I clearly think that hell is coming through the hotel out into the world, but when they actually go to hell at the end, it's only like the last 5 minutes. Which once again, like I said to Chad, probably is a budget thing.
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, I'm going to shift and like one movie or one book. I want to talk about one novel, and James has read this novel, so he can back me up on this. If it was made into a movie, I think it would be a great representation of hell. Richard Cadre's Sandman Slim series. Has a great. If you haven't read it, check it out. He has a great environment that hell takes place in. I mean, it's literally L.A. and hell. That's all. There's highways and byways. It's chaos.
I have the first 5 books signed on my bookshelf over there.
Yeah. So James, do you think that's a great representation of hell in novels?
I think that's a really, really good one. I think it's a great character too. It's really compelling. Another one, and since you brought up a book, I want to bring this up. Anybody remember any of the Barlow's guides? Wayne Barlow, but he had like Barlow's Guide to Extraterrestrial, Barlow's Guide to Demons, Barlow Guide to Men. He's an artist.
Mm-hmm.
But he finally wrote a book, and Del Toro's got a great blurb on it from Del Toro. And I would love to see Del Toro make this into a movie. God's Demon. Wayne Barlow is, like I said, he's an artist. He did the art, which you probably can't see on the cover, but it's God's Demon is about a demon in hell who slowly starts to realize he doesn't want to be in hell. And he's basically a sergeant in Satan's army. Well, Satan has disappeared. Nobody can find him. And all these other lesser demons are fighting. I really enjoyed this book, but there were a couple times when I was like, I am not a theologian. I'm not a biblical scholar. Like Abaddon, it talks about how if Satan doesn't want to punish you because you're that bad, you have to go to Abaddon's pit. And I was like, okay, I'm going to have to look up Abaddon. Abaddon's pit, by the way, was the pre-hell. It's where the souls that before Satan got tossed out, if you had to be punished. So Abaddon's pit is actually the lowest level of hell. It's a fascinating book. It's got a lot of references. And ultimately, it's called God's Demon. Ultimately, it's about redemption. And it's a pretty lengthy book. Wayne Barlow wrote it. He said he'd been doing art for years, but Del Toro's commentary on it was just an extremely fascinating book. And Booklist actually said that it's a fascinating novel that will ring true to anyone who has ever hoped for forgiveness. What's interesting about this, though, and the reason I wanted to bring it up, and I bothered to lay my copy out so I'd remember to bring it up, is the way punishment is meted out in hell. And the way it talks about it. So along with Sandman Slim, the way it talks about hell is hell constantly has to be built. What do you need to build it? You need souls. But not only do you need souls to physically build it, you need souls to be the structure. So basically you work until you can't work anymore, and then you spend the rest of your torment is actually being the structure that people walk on or the buildings. And so you have constant pressure upon you. And Barlow does a much better job showing how much suffering that would be. I mean, you can imagine being nailed into place, knowing that you're going to be a bridge, and that literally these demons, you're over a lake of fire constantly. It's pretty compelling stuff. So I agree, Sandman Slim is probably where I'd start. But if you want a very interesting take on hell that brings in Judeo-Christian beliefs and some of these other religions and actually tries to merge them together, and if you actually go to his website, he has tons of art he did for this book that isn't in this book. You can look at it for free, but it's pretty compelling stuff. It does have one of Abaddon's pit too, which is terrifying. So yeah, God's Demon's another one. But yeah, Sandman Slim, as far as having an earthly version of hell, I agree, Chad. I think that's probably one of the most compelling views because it messes with everything that you think about, the afterlife, that you're going to get out of the rat race, and now it's waiting for you.
All right, guys. We're starting to wind it down here a little bit. Is there another couple points you've got?
Well,
Go ahead, Chad.
Well, I was just going to go into TV.
Okay.
James brought up Robot Hell, but there are at least two good depictions of hell from TV that we should discuss. Again, I know I'm the only one who's seen it, but the Good Places depiction of hell, I think, again, is just, they do a great depiction of it, a comedic version of it as well, but also serious.
Right.
I don't want to give too much away because it's a huge plot point of the show. It
happens at the end of the first season, right?
Yeah.
You figure out.
So I don't want to give too much away, but it does. It's you think everything is hunky dory, but in reality, you're not. You're living in hell, and this is why you're living in hell. But I do want to talk about something that it actually takes. I believe it takes away from, and a lot of pop culture has taken from this one story. Twilight Zone's a nice place to visit.
Yep.
I think a lot of today's depictions of hell come from this episode of Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
And I don't think it gets the credit that it deserves. If you haven't seen a nice place to visit, it's about a thief who dies.
Yep.
And he thinks he's in heaven. He's at a casino. He's every game he plays, he wins. The women flock to and adore him. And it just keeps going on and on and on until he is so overindulged, he doesn't want it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where he finds out you're in hell.
Yeah.
This is hell. You get everything you ever wanted to access.
I popped that into my list as this idea that hell is heaven, right? That it's this idea that, and there's another Twilight Zone that plays with that a little bit, though not directly, and ends much happier. The Hunt. And The Hunt's not as well known an episode. It's not considered one of the classics, but it is about a guy that goes hunting, and his wife takes his old dog and goes hunting, and his wife says, "I've got a bad feeling. I don't think you should go out." And the dog chases something into a lake. He goes after the dog because the dog's going to, and he wakes up the next morning, and he's next to the lake. He goes back to his farm. His wife can't see him, and they're talking about his wife. People start to show up and say, "Sorry to hear about all of this." And then he starts walking down the road because he knows something is off, and somebody stops him and is like, "Oh, you can go ahead and come in. You need to come in here. This is where you need to go. This is heaven. This is the Elysian fields. This is you'll get everything that you want." And as he starts going, he goes, "Wait a second." The dog comes too. And the guy at the gate goes, No. Somebody will come along for him later. Dogs don't go to this heaven. They get their own heaven. They go to doggy. I mean, I'm simplifying it somewhat. And he goes, "Well, if you won't let my hunting dog in, I ain't going to go." It's a very,
Yeah, I know. I remember.
Odd story. And then he finally goes, "Well, I'm not going to go in." And he walks on down the road. And then, of course, he comes to another field, and they go, "You can go in." And he goes, "I ain't going in if my dog can't go in." He goes, "Of course your dog can go in." And he says, "Well, this other fellow wouldn't let my dog go in." And he goes, "That's because that's hell." He goes, "Because they won't let dogs in because they can smell the brimstone." And it's this idea that, there's not much that could separate them in some way. And so yeah, again, Chad, actually I had on my list, even though I've watched the first episode. I need to finish it. But The Good Place, I had on that idea of hell is heaven in some ways. So yes, yeah, I just want to bring up The Hunt. It's a lesser known episode, but
and then the final, I can wrap up on this one. One of the best depictions of hell in television. And I discovered this in a hotel room with James after a lovely night of laughing at John Cleese and Eric Idle and having some good old barbecue. Your pretty face is going to hell.
Yeah.
It is a great depict. So imagine hell is like working you're a demon, you have a cubicle.
Yeah.
Your computer is a sentient demon who spits out disc that cuts you in two.
The break room is literally a meat grinder that you have to go into, and it just grinds you up.
Yeah,
And
the devil comes up and goes, I think you need to go take a break in the break room. No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. No, you're
Gary, you need a break.
Gary, you need a break. I'm really good. I don't need a break. Oh,
It's an Adult Swim cartoon show.
no,
right?
it's live action.
Live action.
With some interesting animations occasionally, but yeah.
And there's their depictions of, the tortured areas. There's the lake of shit that
there's having to be the devil's urinal.
Yeah.
Like your face has to be in the urinal so he can literally, forgive me, piss on you. That's your job. Like, okay.
James, I just said lake of shit.
I know.
He just wanted forgiveness for peeing on me, and he doesn't understand that that's what I wanted all along.
I keep wondering why you hand me those 20s as I leave, but I don't want to cause a scene.
I will shower you with green if you shower me with yellow.
But no, your pretty face of going to hell. I think, honestly, a great show crammed into 12 minutes.
And there is a lot of, there's a couple times where you're like, oh my God, that is actually suffer. Like, the amount of times that he lets him get close to somebody that he knew when he was alive, just to there's an early episode, I think it's the first season, where literally the devil's having a completely sex-based relationship with his ex-girlfriend and makes him go watch.
Yep.
and tells him, yeah, I'm gonna break it off next week. I just wanted to see if I could do it. Well, that'll devastate her. Yeah, I guess. And by the way, I put this as my final category I was going to bring up, so this worked out really well.
You're welcome.
The idea that hell is a bureaucracy or a state of boredom in an office is its own commentary. We see this actually, was my first on this list, Your Pretty Face is Going to Hell. But we also see it in things like Deconstructing Harry.
Yeah.
The Far Side, Gary Larson's comic. There are a ton of those where you get like nerds in hell, where it's like hot enough for you. This idea of all of that stuff. And even in
I just started laughing again. the cartoon just pictured in my head. Like,
yeah. The show Reaper, it's the idea that the portal to hell is at a DMV. He has to drop off the whatever he has to do. And there's a couple books. I wanted to bring up this description. So Lev Grossman wrote a trilogy called The Magicians. One of the books is The Magician King, where they go down to hell, and it's basically a waiting room with board games. And I wanted to read a little bit of an excerpt from his description, where they try to interview one of the shades, is what it's called. It's not a spirit or a soul. They call them shades. And the shade is just sitting there bored to death playing solitaire. And they ask him what it's like, and here's his quote. This whole place, it's like somebody tried to make it nice with all the games and stuff, but didn't quite care enough to think it through, you know? Who wants to play games forever? I'm just so bored of everything, and I haven't been here that long. You don't even get powers. I'm not even see-through. Like, he's like, if I was a ghost, I'd be see-through. I could. No, he's not. Because, that would be cool or whatever. So then they say, what else can you do besides the games and such? Not a lot. You can talk to the other shades. There's nothing to eat, but you don't get hungry. A few people fight or even have sex or whatever. And you can totally watch them do it even. But after a while, what's the point? It's just the new people who do it as time goes on. And so this idea that hell is one step away from what we have to do, the bureaucracy that we deal with, the standing, the waiting. I think even Supernatural, near the end, there is an update to hell where they add a line that you have to stand in. You know, this idea that monotony is what hell will be. Yeah, you may be burning, but guess what? It's going to be the same burning every day. It's going to be the same. You're going to have to work to do nothing, or you're going to have to be distracted by nothing. There is nothing to engage you. There is nothing to be involved in, and everything is going to be the same for eternity, which is also, by the way, one of the critiques that some books have made about the concept of heaven. That, you know, if everything is perfect, that's going to be really, really boring. Matter of fact, the last reference that I will make to heaven and hell is, if anybody has ever read, there was a comic book that was actually a comic book. It was meant to be humorous, called Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. And at one point, Johnny dies and he's sent to hell, but they don't want him in hell because he causes too many problems. So he gets sent to heaven. And when he's in heaven, they say, well, this is heaven. Well, what can I do? This is heaven. You can do whatever you want. So he starts making people's heads explode because he gets bored, and he gets cast out of heaven and has to go back to earth. And so I think that's one of the big commentaries that we see in this dialogue about heaven and hell and all of this, as we get ready to wrap up this two-part about heaven first and then hell, is that when it either way, it eventually get tiresome, boring. I mean, don't we need something?
If there is an afterlife, it's
Ghostbusters Part 3.
Hopefully.
Yeah, well, eventually.
Well, yeah, I truly, it is beyond our imagining.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the challenges. And I give credit to all these people that we've mentioned for even trying to figure out, how do you envision it?
Right.
I mean, what does it look like?
Yeah.
And so I think that, you know, I don't have.
I'll tell you what it doesn't look like. Supernatural's hell, where it's just kind of a place where it's about 3 sets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Budget.
All right, guys. Anything else?
No.
We beat the hell out of this.
Oh, you know how you get holy water, Joe? You got to boil the hell out of it.
I was
So
going to say
basically-
beat the hell out of it. Boil makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Water won't sit still.
So, by the way, that just recapping, the way I had it classified, and you all touched on all of them, was that hell is reliving your worst moments. There's that version. There's the obvious burning version. There's the bureaucracy and boredom version. The maze, that it's like heaven, except it's too good to be true. And that idea that there's something organic about it from Frighteners. That's actually everything that I had in mind, and we've already hit it all.
All right.
So how are we going to fill the next 40 minutes to make this 2 hours long?
Do not, and our audience will be so happy and proud. You boys,
we're trying to give them a taste of hell. Here, I'll read.
We're trying to give them every bit of the entertainment that they paid for.
Yep. No refunds.
No refunds. All right. It's been Bonehead. Please share and subscribe.